Oh,
They can't, once they submit it, we're down to 2 miles.
to reach out to them.
To provide additional information, if there's a complaint, I guess they're fine.
Okay.
If there's a complaint, we can respond,
If there's a complaint,
but if nobody complains, we're SOL,
Grant.
kind of. Amy, I invited Tim Detman and his family for Friday.
Great.
Also Randy specifically, so just so you know.
Devora.
Randy's, yeah, but he's a town
Well, he's in
resident, but-
town, yeah.
I know, but I just, those two guys we work with.
There'll be plenty.
Doesn't Tim live in the town too?
No, he's in Sturgeon Bay.
No. Tim's ex-wife lives in the town.
No. Never.
public hearing regarding our proposed 2024 budget on Monday, November 27th at 6 p.m. So as we have done in the past, there are hard copies, if you haven't already grabbed one, copy of our budget. I will basically go through the budget and try and highlight those areas where there has been some change, positive or negative. If there's questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll try and work through them as we can. After we are done with that hearing, I'll close the hearing for a few minutes to allow our videographers to update the agendas and the screens. And then we will go to the special town board meeting, which immediately will follow the public hearing. So with that, for those of you that are dying with anticipation, I'm going to start on page 1 of the detailed 2024 budget. And I'm going to go underneath expenditures, general government, and as you'll see, there's been no changes, just as an FYI, to neither my salary or the salary of the supervisors for next year. We do, however, have a raise included for the clerk treasurer, a valued member of our team, and we are taking her from $66,000 to $70,000 for next year. You will hear during the meeting at some point in time that she's basically earned her salary this year in getting a grant for us through the Door County Foundation of $70,000 towards the restroom project at the park. She certainly does a great job for us, and we feel that that salary increase is merited. Dropping down to line item 13, election supplies, etc. The increase there goes from $1,800 to $3,600. Obviously, that's driven by the number of elections that we have during the year. And the same thing applies to election poll workers, which goes from $3,000 to $10,000. The more elections, obviously, the more we have to pay the employee or the people that come in and man the polls and do all the election work for us. Dropping down to line item 20, the assessor. This is an increase, just a slight increase, from $20,000 to $128,000. And just as a reminder, the reason that is there is next year will be a full reval for the town, and we're on a scheduled payment plan with the assessor, and this will be the bulk of that payment for 2024. That's the reason for the increase. Typically what we do, and I believe we'll continue to do into the future, is once we paid this down, we'll start to set aside money each year, building to the next time that we have a reval, so that the money doesn't just come out as one lump sum out of our annual budget. So, flipping the page. I'm going to go down to Town Hall grounds, which is line 27. Our annual budget this year was $5,000, next year is $8,000. We've added a couple things to ground maintenance, one of which is we've hired Meisner to do some work with our plants, trees, and shrubs, which were getting a little out of control and needed some attention. So that's part of the increase for that year. We pay a number of people, obviously, to maintain the whole town hall grounds so they look presentable. And I think the people that work for us do a pretty decent job. Building inspection fees on line 31. This is a decrease, anticipating that construction in Door County will decline. This is kind of like snow. We don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but based on the interest rates and what we're hearing, we think we'll have a modest decline in that category year over year. Going to drop down to line 40, Wisconsin Retirement Systems. That increase from $4,400 to $5,000 is a result of the raise that we are giving the town clerk treasurer. We match her her contributions to the state retirement fund, so that's the reason for that, and the reason that increases. Going down to line 42, the Plant Commission. The current budget was $59.60, and it's going to go to $69.17. And part of this is our dues for the Bay Lake Regional Planning Commission, which we are members of. We have invited the head of that group to attend our December meeting to really delve in a little further into our investment with them. Where our membership in their organization pays huge dividends is when we work on our Pardon me?
The roads?
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive
Comprehensive
plan.
plan, thank you, just green, yeah. So when we work on our comprehensive plan, as we did a few years ago, they are a significant contributor to that effort. But anyway, so this looks like where we're gonna go at this point in time. That could be revised based on our December meeting. Line 44, room tax admin costs. As a result of the change from 5 to 8% in the room tax fee, the town took on, as all towns in the county did, took on the burden or expense of administration costs. We're anticipating that to go up a little from $21,000 to $22,000. Just as a footnote, the room tax admin costs are actually refunded back to us through Destination Door County as part of our tourist-related activities, which, if you can take it one step further, it's paying the bill for the reconstruction of the tennis, pickleball, and basketball courts. So, I think we've explained that in the past, but if there's questions. Next item, under item public safety, row 48 is fire protection. I'm pleased to announce that we were able to negotiate a new 3-year contract with the city of Sturgeon Bay to provide fire protection services for the town. They've done a good job for us. They take care of issuing our fire permits. They take care of a lot of stuff for us. Do a good job. I have not had a complaint from anyone with respect to the level of service they've provided at any level. We're right around 3.5% increase on the contract over a 3-year term. We initially approved, I think in our October meeting, it was anticipated we were going to be able to go to a 5-year term, but in the end that was resisted by the city, so we dropped back to a 3-year term underneath the same proposed costs. So I think that helps us. If I were to look back 10 or 15 years ago, when we started working on our fire contract, had we stayed underneath the prior contract that we had in place with the city, we'd be well in excess of $550,000 a year based on the rates we were paying at the time. So it's a win-win for both of us. They get a significant chunk of cash from us, which enables them to maintain their fire equipment in top-level control or condition, and we benefit as well. Line 50 under EMR, call pay, there's an increase there from 5,000 to 6,000. The EMRs have tasked themselves to increase the number of calls that they are able to make. We've already seen an increase year over year. Their issue, and if there's anyone out there that would really be interested in being an EMR, they would love to have some people, especially along the lake shore. Geographically, the location of those people determine how easily they can respond on a timely basis to calls. If they don't respond, the fire department does. So anyway, their goal is to continue to increase their activity and try and find new resources for people that might be interested in joining that group. I don't think there's anything else in that category. But EMR supplies went down from 6,200 to 5,000, as well as EMR refresher training from 49 to 1,000. And that group is managed by Derek, and so they create their own budget subject to our approval. Dropping down to Public Works under road maintenance. Road maintenance mowing is going to increase from 15,000 to 22,000. Every other year, we do fence line to fence line, which is what's basically called a double cut. And this is the year that we will do that in order to control the brush and the small trees and things that pop up. We try and cut back so we don't have problems. This year will be a double cut, and then 25, it'll be a single cut, not a decrease again. Road maintenance and repairs, we're increasing that budget from 36,000, that's row 60, to 51,000. We're trying to implement a program to preserve our roads by following the guidelines of the State of Wisconsin Department of Transportation, which what the state does is automatically 3 years after they've repaved or reconstructed a road, they go out and do crack filling. So we started that this year. We were a little under budget on our road construction, so we spent the extra money to implement that this year. And we'll try and carry through with that next year, picking off the roads that are just 3 years old, preserving them so water does not get into the pavement and cause the pavement to buckle over time from the freeze-thaw cycles. Road construction, we're going to stay with the $400,000 that we've maintained for the last few years. We have already received, through Linda Waite's efforts, some money for road construction next year through a local road improvement program that's funded by the state and administered by the county. So we have some money there to work on the remaining portions of Whitefish Bay Road west of 57. Snow removal, we could spend the better part of the night talking about that. We never know exactly where that's going to trend. We were at $140,000 a few years ago, and over the course of a couple of years, we were able to trend that down to $100,000. And then 2023 bounced right back to 127, and we think at the end of the year it'll be right back at 140. We're hopeful that we don't need to spend that all next year, so we're going to go with $120,000, an increase of $20,000 over the current year. Tree trimming and applications, line 65, fairly significant increase there, 12,000 to 25,000. This is almost entirely due to our friends, the ash tree, who are dropping anywhere and everywhere they feel appropriate. And we're also attempting to do a little right-of-way cleanup. Some of the town roads are becoming somewhat of a tunnel. That is very costly to do the right-of-way cleanup, because most of that has to be manually done. Can't use equipment. So we've increased that, and hopefully we can live within that budget for the year. I'm going to flip over to culture, recreation, and education. Line item 77, town park fields. They're going from 3,000 to 5,000. Town park repair and maintenance, we're going from 3,000 to 4,000. We'll just find there's a myriad of things at the park, obviously, that need upkeep, repair, or replacement. And if we don't find them ourselves, we have others in the community that hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, that manage to point out what needs to be fixed. So we took moderate increases in both of those. Dropping down to line 86, videographer. We've increased that from 3,000 to 3,600. We've given Laddie an increase for the time he spends videotaping. As you can see over there, those gentlemen have a few cables and other things to connect up beforehand, and we felt it was appropriate to adjust that as we pay him to tape those shows for us. Okay, I'm going to flip over to Capital Park Recreation, page 97. Excuse me, line 97. Capital Park Recreation, the budget for 2023 was $74,000. The budget for 2024 is $33,000. I think I mentioned earlier, we got a grant regarding the $70,000 to, our plan is to completely build a new restroom that'll be ADA compliant, a family bathroom as well, adjacent to the existing concession stand, and to remodel the existing concession stand and bring it up to today's standards, let's say. Plan Commission, we budgeted nothing in 2023. We have set aside $5,000 as a starting point for updating our comprehensive plan. And broadband webcams, Wi-Fi, we had budgeted nothing in 2023, knowing we weren't going to do anything with it. But as part of our contract with AT&T and expansion of Wi-Fi, we put in $25,000. Our hope is, and our contract with AT&T stipulates, that they'll be providing us a hotspot, more or less, or Wi-Fi, at our town park facility locations where we will enable cameras. And some of the areas that we're looking forward to doing that would be Whitefish Bay Boat Launch, Clark Lake Beach, the Clark Lake Dam, amongst others. That's set aside. Whether or not that'll happen in 2024 We're not positive at this point, but we're budgeting the money to set aside for that project. The worst case, it'll carry over to the following year's budget. Town Hall grounds, audio visual. We had a budget last year, or this year, of $81.75. We're increasing that to $20,000 for 2024. And this is to completely replace and upgrade our audio visual in this room. We've had numerous issues with our townspeople who have said they've been unable to hear clearly what's being said, and so we have hired a professional, went through a couple of steps with them already, to completely redo our sound system so that everyone will be better able to hear what is happening. As a side benefit, we believe that we'll be able to allow people who are renting the town hall to also access the AV system, which we've had requests to do, but we want to make sure that in doing so that it's not damaged, and the individual that we've hired has assured us that there are ways to control that and still allow people to access that capability, which will make it a little bit more pleasant experience for some of the large groups that come in here over time. So, drifting down to line item 102, you see the budget year over year from 2023 was $1,531,404, and our proposed budget for 2024 is $1,666,441, an increase of approximately $135,000. The way the state, or the way we handle our budget allowed by state, is we are also able to charge, not charge, but to, tongue-tied here, to recapture debt service. So when you look at line item 106, where it says total expenditures and debt, that number becomes year over year $1,688,133. So under intergovernmental revenues, if you go down, I'm just picking off the high points again. Go down to line item 112, highway aids. Those continue to be the same year over year, 232 and 232. The big change in the last state budget, which has a positive impact on us, is line item 114, shared revenues from the state. They were $44,265. That basically never changed in a decade, I guess. And after the last budget cycle, our shared revenue contribution from the state will be $122,829. That's approximately an $80,000 increase year over year, which is great, since they have a limit on so many other areas that we kind of budget for. I think I mentioned a little earlier, I'm looking at line item 118, room tax reimbursement. I mentioned that's reimbursed through the county as a rebate back to us. That was paying for the cost of the tennis, pickleball, and basketball courts. Flipping the page, going to line item 124, short-term rental license fees. That's going up from $19,000 to $22,000. A modest increase there. Ordinance enforcement income. We made a decision to take the fees that we obtain from people who violate our ordinances and to put those back into basically to enforce other ordinances, short-term rental and any others that we might have, like nuisance issues. So we have money to take the necessary steps to clean some of these things up. We've been very successful in dealing with especially nuisance properties, mobile homes, deteriorated buildings, etc. And those do obviously eat up some attorney's fees. This will help us in that regard as well, and still continue to make sure that Sevastopol looks nice from a visual perspective. Line item 134, field work reimbursement. You probably know we have an agreement with the Sevastopol School District to use the park. They're the primary user for the ball fields at the park, as well as their physical ed classes. And under that, they pay us a fee once a year of $10,000. That's static year over year. We've worked with them. If you've read some of the news in the Pulse or others, we've worked with the school to do some park enhancements, and most recently through donations made from individuals and from organizations. The school, working through the Mighty Pioneers, which is a school support group for the baseball, kids baseball, have been able to purchase 3 scoreboards that'll be replacing the existing ones this spring on the park. Cost roughly $50-some thousand, as well as enhance the baseball field through some enhancements and creation of bullpens for the students and the kids that use those parks from a safety perspective. So, room tax receipts on room 140, line 142, going from $120,000 to $140,000. This is kind of similar to snow. We don't know whether we're always going to go up or down, but we're going to try and trend it up, and we'll see what the economy does year over year. Going to line item 149, interest, Associated Bank, etc. Budgeted $3,000, we blew this one. We expect $33,000 in interest income over the course of the year, and we're budgeting $25,000 for 2024. We've actually taken that down from what we've already achieved, and we're primarily doing that because there will be less in our general fund budget to be interest bearing as we make some capital outlays over the course of 2024. So total revenues for the period 2024 are anticipated being just under $700,000, $696,265. Taxes, look, line item 154, tax levy receipts. This is the amount that the taxpayers pay, $652,124. That is the maximum levy that the state allows, which I think is less than 2% this year, or is it 2?
It's less than 2.
Less than 2, based on new construction, you're right. Then we have levy for general obligation debt of $21,000, so the total levy is $673,816. Revenues and tax levy receipts come to $1,370,081. The town will apply from its reserves $318,051 to balance that with our expenditures, so that we equal out at the $1,688,133. And that is everything there. Oh, just, I think this is probably the most interesting part. I gotta flip the page. If we were to look at our tax rate for the last 3 years as a result of this budget, in 2021, our municipal levy per $1,000 of assessed value was 86 cents. In 2022, it was 89 cents. And in 2023, payable in 24 is 89 cents per thousand. So over a 3-year span, increase of less than 3 cents. So, any questions from anyone? Otherwise, that's everything in the worksheet.
No.
Yes?
Thank you. The notice, the projections in the notice for tonight's hearing projected that the reserves would go from $500,000 at the beginning of the year to slightly over $1 million at the end of the year. But the budget projections also show for this year, town will have to take $230,000 out of the reserves in order to.
Excuse me, would you let me have the mic, please?
Oh. So the projections in the notice.
I still can't hear anything. Is it on?
Is it on?
It's on.
Okay.
Go
All
closer.
right. The audited financials showed a balance in the reserves of $500,000 at the first of the year. The projections in the notice project a balance in reserves of $1 million at the end of this year. The projections in the budget are that you'd have to take $230,000 out of the reserves in order to balance the budget this year, which means, if I'm doing the math right in my head, there got to be about $700,000 of revenue flowing into the reserves over the course of this year in excess of the expenses. And I don't understand initially where that money's coming from to raise the reserves.
Well, it's not flowing into it because there's money that's been in there. So what you're saying is there are additions to what was in there from the previous year.
Yeah, well, no, the projection, and maybe the dates are wrong, but the projection is the reserves will go up $500,000 this year. But you'll also take $230,000 out of the reserves this year in order to balance the budget, which means you got to come up with $700,000 to hit the million.
Well, at this point, we haven't taken anything out of reserves. So, so that 230,000 is still in there. So, so let's negate that. So that 500,000 now still has that 730,000 in there, okay?
No, the 230,000.
Correct.
You said
But you said,
730.
okay, so, but we started at 500,000, a half a million. But we didn't use any,
But according to your projection, you have to take out $230,000 by the end of the year in order to balance the budget.
We are just, that is the budget is a tool. We're projecting that if things happen the way we think they're going to happen, we might need this money. If we get a grant, like we did, that's money that we didn't think we were going to get, and so now we have excess money. So there are times that we might use the cash applied, there's times we might not use the cash applied. It's all an estimate as we go. So,
I understand what a projection is.
okay,
And even if we set aside the 230,000, set that aside for a minute, you're still projecting your reserves are going to grow by $500,000 this year. So I don't understand where the $500,000 is coming from.
that's money that we've that's money that,
It's accumulated funds.
correct, so,
The financials that you shows a balanced budget.
Mm-hmm.
If your expenses equal your revenue or your revenue equals your expenses, I don't understand where the $500,000 is coming from to increase your reserves, our reserves.
okay,
All I'm trying to do is understand how the numbers are working.
so the capital expenditures, the majority of that money is coming from the capital expenditures. The increase in typically that money, the money that we're having over that amount of time is coming from the capital expenditures because we're putting more money away to do larger projects, such as the restrooms at the park, broadband expansion, the audio visual in here. All of those things are larger things that are gonna cost a greater amount of money. The town hall, we always have $50,000 in reserve in case we need, a couple of years ago, we needed a new well. We needed over $50,000 to do that. So we have reserves set aside. So, this restroom is possibly gonna cost between $200,000 and $300,000. So,
If you were to take a look at the designated fund balances, I think some of the things that you're talking about are reflected in the month-to-month designated balance sheet, which I believe you get a copy of.
Yeah, so
So you show in there that there are line items like town park capital, building fund, room tax, ARPA funds, et cetera, which increase significantly the base that we have on reserve, if you want to call it that.
So am I to understand that there are expenses shown in the 2023 budget that aren't actually going to be incurred in 2023? And that generates revenue you're not spending for that purpose, and therefore you put it into reserves?
Correct.
You follow?
Yeah.
Yes,
Basically,
correct.
So roughly a third of the expenses in the 2023 budget aren't actually being incurred, that 500,000?
Well, some of it's being accrued, you know, it's, I think the best bet, Jeff, it's Jeff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You should probably just sit down sometime outside of this and get into it. It's too involved. It floats. I mean, it's, I've been doing this for unfortunately too long.
No,
And it just gets to a point where, you know, there is a lot of flex in the budget as you go. And if you underspend, you can amend, you can move money from one category to another. You accrue funds, it carries over. You anticipate spending it for something, it may or may not get spent. You have a rainy day fund that's mandated by the CPA organizations or the government, as you know. But we try to just juggle through that. We get audited annually, April meeting, we go through all of that. I'd be happy to have you sit down and talk to our CPA if that satisfies your itch, so that, you know.
Sure.
We're just not gonna be able to go through all of that detail to your level of satisfaction. But have no problem in setting that up if that's something you'd like to do.
Sure, that would be helpful. I did want to ask a specific question, and trust me, I understand that budgets are the best
Just guesstimates?
projection you can make as to what's going to happen in the future, but I was struck, I was looking at, find it, the parks, yeah. And I realize these are not huge numbers, but
Give me a line item, please.
sure. To start with, 78, town park repairs and maintenance.
All right.
And if you look back to 2022, that budget category has gone over budget every year, fairly significantly this year, and yet you've budgeted at $4,000 slight increase, but less than has been spent the last 2 years. And you see the same pattern in parks grounds, town parks grounds, which is 80. And I just wondered whether that was looked at and why you feel those are realistic budget numbers for 2024 in light of the history of what's happened there.
I can't address exact specific, but I can take, for example, 1 year, we budgeted, we thought we had adequate funds, and the tractor that we used at the town park broke down and ended up costing us $3,000 or $4,000 to repair, which we did not have money set aside for. We typically find, even though you attempt to budget to cover those things, we typically find we get a surprise every now and then. So rather than go overboard, if we think we've cleared most of the bad problems away, we try to control the budget rather than increase it. And that's pretty typical of what happens. With respect to the fields, we have periodic issues with the fields and with the school. We have an agreement with them, which we want both sides to honor, but there have been situations where they felt that we haven't done what's right, and we've had to step up and advance, do some spending that we hadn't anticipated. We just went through some of that this year with the enhancements that were made at the park. So you try to get your best grasp of what's gonna go on, but it's very difficult to control. When I look at road maintenance, another one that you just don't know when a culvert collapses. And when a culvert collapses, it costs $10,000 or $12,000 to replace, and sometimes you find that you don't think you really need one, but if you're paving a road, boy, you better replace them now rather than wait till after you pave it, then rip it all up and put them in again. So you're just making your best guesstimate. You know that you have excess funds, just like generally everybody does. And if you have to adjust the budgets up or down, you have the ability to do that. And that's what you have reserves for. So.
Okay. The final question is a general one, and you alluded to it going through here. As I understand the revenue cap that applies to towns, you can only increase your general levy by the percentage equal to net new construction, which for this year was 1.3%, which you've done. But the expenses, the expense portion of the budget has increased 16%. Because, I mean, you're like everybody else, costs go up.
Right.
Has the board considered or projected at what point it becomes impossible to maintain the course the town is on financially, and what alternatives are available to try to address that?
I don't know that we have delved into that topic specifically. We have been fortunate over the last couple of years to benefit from two things, one being ARPA funds, and the other one will come to me.
Room tax?
The increase in
Room
state aid
tax,
helped
thank
this
you.
year.
Yeah, sometimes, room tax and ARPA funds have been two really significant increases in our revenue streams. And we've taken on some projects that we've used some of that money for. Broadband is another one that's coming up, where we'll end up using some of that money for. I would say that, obviously we have to think into the future, but at this point in time, I can't envision that using what we have, that we should have any major issues for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't mean major issues, but we should have any problems dealing with our budget versus our revenues. Obviously, some of the things that we've undertaken are one-time expenses and shouldn't reoccur. Restrooms, park enhancements of significant funds, broadband. So I think some of those things will drop out of the budget as our revenues decline, and hopefully we'll still be in line. I think in the 20 years that I've been on this town board, I'd have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that we've stayed within 80 cents per thousand to 90 cents per thousand since I've been on this board, which I think, even though our expenses may be up, I think is very reasonable in comparison to surrounding communities. And I think we've done a fairly good job managing your money to this point in time. So, and I think in fact last year or 2 years ago, the Peninsula Pulse laid out the cost per thousand for all of the towns in the county, villages. I think we're on the bottom quarter of those increases. So I think we're doing a pretty decent job.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just a quick, for clarification, and I know this isn't obviously not until the whole broadband thing is up and running, but when you mentioned the webcams and stuff like that, is it gonna be like public viewing webcams or closed circuit? Kind of like when I say public viewing, like, you know how they have the tower in Sturgeon Bay where you can log on to the website and see, like, say the town park or whatever. Is it gonna be public viewing or is it closed circuit?
I don't know.
Okay.
We haven't got, we've gotten some proposals from them that, encompass everything you could ever want.
Okay.
Primarily, we're concerned with Clark Lake, with the beaches, and we're concerned with the dam.
Right.
We've had many issues over the years, so I'm sure that both those locations will be able to view and record. Beyond that, I don't know. The idea for the park would be to provide Wi-Fi and potentially a camera that someone could look at to determine if there's a use on a basketball court or, something going on. But it's too early to be determined yet, as we haven't inked the contract yet with AT&T. So,
Yeah, I was just curious.
yeah, so am I. We'll see where it goes. All right, anything else? All right.